Nigeria is Africa's most populous country and has the largest GDP of the entire continent, making it a regional power in Africa. Despite being such a heavyweight in Africa's affairs, little is known about the country and the forces that govern it. In fact, most do not know that Nigeria is on its fourth republic since becoming independent from the United Kingdom in 1960. Nigeria adopted its current constitution in 1999 after decades of military rule and has managed to skate by on it ever since. The original constitution, drafted in 1960, copied the British parliamentary system, which caused many problems for the First Republic. The lack of safeguards against absolute power led to a bitter contest between Nigeria's many ethnic groups for control of the government. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic country with over 250 languages, and each region of the country represents entirely different cultures and people. The northern part of the country is dominated by the different ethnic groups but united through common Islamic belief, while the southwest and southeastern parts of the country represent multiple groups with different languages and culture. This caused political parties in Nigeria to be based on ethnic affiliation, and whichever one had the largest population tended to dominate the parliament because the majority was enough to take control. The ethnic groups in Nigeria's northern region were the most populous, and they formed a coalition with the groups in the southeast, so minorities and smaller ethnic groups within the country virtually had no say in government. This was a recipe for disaster, and it created intense resentment and stark divisions between different regions of the country that would eventually lead to violence. Corruption was also prevalent throughout every republic in Nigeria's history and was a major reason for the country's second republic to be overthrown by the military in 1983 after only 4 years of democratic government. The 1999 constitution attempts to learn from the mistakes of its predecessors by adopting a presidential system that closely resembles that of the United States, and it employs safeguards against the corruption and ethnic rivalry that destroyed the previous republics. The constitution uses ideas like separation of powers, minority representation, and federalism to address the problems of the last governments. It decided to divide Nigeria's politics into 3 distinct branches of government. The first of which is the Judicial Branch, which is comprised of judges that rule on justice and laws. There are many different types of courts within Nigeria that use different legal systems. The national government, which is also called the federal government, is comprised of the Federal High Court, the Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest level court in Nigeria and has the final say in any judicial matter. Most who do not accept the rulings of other lower courts appeal to the Supreme Court so they can have their case heard. The Supreme Court is presided over by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and justices are appointed to the court until they're forced to retire at the age of 70. There are other types of courts within Nigeria. Some of the most important are the customary courts, which follow the customary laws of traditional groups in Nigeria. The others are the Shariah courts within Nigeria, which follow Islamic law and are concentrated within northern Nigeria. There are other courts and tribunals, but these are the main ones, and most judges are appointed to their positions by the president with the recommendation of the National Judicial Council, which is an independent commission meant to prevent the president from having too much control over the judicial branch. The council is comprised of prestigious legal scholars from the Nigerian Bar Association and heads of many courts in Nigeria like the Supreme and Shariah courts. The next branch within the Nigerian government is the legislative branch, and it's made up of the National Assembly. The National Assembly is the main lawmaking body within Nigeria and has 2 different chambers. The first of which is the House of Representatives, which is made up of 360 members from single-member districts throughout the country. Members are voted in for 4 years at a time and are elected by winning a plurality or simple majority of votes. The House of Representatives is presided over by the Speaker of the House, who is voted in by a simple majority from the chamber. The other chamber in the National Assembly is the Senate, which is made up of 109 members who are in office for 4 years, and each state is entitled to 3 senators from 3 separate districts within the state. They're voted the same way in as the House members and are presided over by the President of the Senate, who is voted in by members of that chamber. To create laws, both chambers need to pass a bill. A bill is a proposal for a law, and then after the vote, the bill needs to get a signature from the President. If bills are not signed by the President, then they are vetoed or denied. The National Assembly must then try to fix the bill or attempt to override the President by having at least 2/3 of its members voting to pass the bill. The final but one of the most significant parts of government is the executive branch. The president is the center focus within the branch, and all authority stems from the office. The president is the head of state, commander-in-chief for the country's armed forces, and chief executive of the government. The president is head of a cabinet which assists in running the country. Members of the cabinet must be from each of Nigeria's 36 states to prevent ethnic favoritism. The cabinet is full of ministers who are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. The ministers are responsible for ministries and various government-owned companies. The president president, though, is the head of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and has a firm control over the country's oil production. The person elected to the presidency must not just have a majority of the votes, but must also have at least 1/4 of the votes casted in 2/3 of the states. This has guaranteed that the president isn't simply elected by the largest ethnic group, but by gaining the votes of a large section of the country. The president will also run with a vice presidential candidate who will be the successor should the president die. The president's most important role is signing bills from the National Assembly to formally make them laws, and running the various government ministries which administer the laws passed. For example, if the National Assembly passes a bill to provide every citizen with a car, it's up to the president and the executive branch to make that a reality by acquiring the cars and distributing them to every citizen. If it goes wrong, then the president and the executive branch were most likely at fault because they were in charge of executing the law. As stated before, Nigeria's constitution tries to use federalism to try and grant autonomy to the country's many ethnic groups. Federalism is the idea of divisions of power between the national and state governments within a country. For instance, while there's a national government headed by Nigeria's president, each of Nigeria's 36 states also has their own governments. Each state government is almost identical to the federal structure. Its executive branch is run by the governor. It has a judicial branch with its highest court being the high court of the state. The legislative branch is different from the national government in that it only has one chamber called the House of Assembly, whose members are directly elected. State governments have the power to make laws and things that aren't stated to be the federal government's responsibility, but any law that conflicts with national law is made invalid and the federal law takes precedent. It's also worth noting that Nigeria's capital, Abuja, is also run separate from all the other states and has no formal governor, but rather is run by a minister appointed by the president. The constitution also mandated that all parties have to have national appeal and be registered in most of the country to run for elections nationally. This helps prevent political parties fueled by ethnic rivalry. Overall, Nigeria's 1999 constitution attempts to fix the problems of the republics that came before it. Concepts like federalism, separation of powers, and independent commissions are throughout the constitution and have managed to minimize some of the problems that were rife throughout the early years of independence. Despite this, though, there are still many problems. Corruption still plagues the country and prevents good governance from taking root. Ethnic tensions are still incredibly visible within Nigerian society. Many within government still fight over which ethnic group should have control of the national government. Some have used the term the national cake to describe the presidency and other parts of government that different ethnic groups fight to take control of. Attempts have been made to prevent the same resentment that brought the First Republic down. Nigeria tried to practice something called zoning, where the presidency would rotate between Nigeria's different regions, but the practice has started to falter. The 1999 constitution does many things right, but hasn't been able to get to the root of the systematic problems in Nigeria's political system, and it's going to take more restructuring to get there. Unfortunately, Nigerian politicians have shown little desire for this and won't stop because of their desire to cling to the prospect of power that the federal government offers. It's up to the citizens of Nigeria to fight for the change they want to see, because if they don't, no one will.